Yeah, see, I'm done going to my networking events, so this one's just
This one's
because I
fun.
wanted to.
Yeah.
Right?
I'm not done going to my network.
Yeah,
event
this is
either,
from,
but I-
this is all us.
this is 2 out of 3 for me.
Alright, you guys ready?
Yeah.
Alright, this is GamedevGR. I'm Garrett Hoofman. I'm the G Hoofman guy in Discord. You guys aren't on the Discord? Jump on it. Emily, take it away.
All right. So this is communicating from opposite ends, bridging the gap between technical and artist people. So in game creation, communication between both departments can be vastly different, especially with terms and vocabulary. So this is to help bridge that gap a little bit, especially for, I'm assuming a lot of you guys are programmers. So, and I'm an artist, so it's just explaining a little bit about the art side of things. So one of the biggest things that I've learned throughout the years is when it comes to describing my process through paper and pencil, programmers tend to call it analog, while I call it traditional. I believe that analog is more familiar to programmers because it's using old technology that's not being converted into binary code, whereas traditional is a physical medium that has been used throughout the years by our masters. So learning the different vocabulary that we each use will help bridge that little gap of language in communication. So right now, I have elements of art, which is one of the basic foundations for artists to follow along. And let's have my notes just to make sure. Oops. Presentation disappeared.
Oh,
This is my favorite channel.
All right. So form, which is these geometric shapes right over here. Form is a three-dimensional object, can be geometric or organic. We are organic forms, whereas like your pop bottle or the table would be more geometric. And it is created by combining shapes. Line, such as right over here, is defined by a point moving in space, and it is the starting place for creating art. And then there's also different types of lines, and then also widths, which can be vastly important when it comes to designing either a character or the environment. We have color, which can aid organization through color strategy. So with color, it can be a little bit complicated, especially because of color theory, but it's a pretty massive tool in making an impact towards your viewers and players. Space creates illusion of 3 dimensions on a flat surface, which I believe that is the example. So overlapping will make objects appear closer, and then perspective is how objects appear farther away. For this one, the artist instead played with negative and positive space to create 2 bears hugging each other. So that's also a pretty important aspect in art as well, because in that way you can define the silhouette of the characters and stuff. Texture is the way that a surface feels or should feel like. So right here we have wood, and then we have scales, and then also like a silk fabric type. That's going to be vastly important as far as creating distinction between characters, environment, ground versus the sky and trees. And then we have value, which is how the light and shadows interact with each other. Not only that, but also like how the objects separate from the background. Because right now the apple is a pretty dark color, so that makes it stand out against the background. And last but not least, we also have shape, which is the starting point for our forms as well. Whoops. All right, Principles of Art combines all of the elements of art into much more completed form. So we have balance, which is the state of equalized tension and equilibrium. So balance can either be symmetrical or asymmetrical. Asymmetrical creates contrast and differences. It creates interest, which is pretty important. However, this also creates interest because while it is symmetrical, there's also asymmetrical balance going on in there. Scale and proportion is using relative size against each other to create a focal point. So this little chick right over here is way too big, but because of that, you can see the proportions against this guy, which we know is about our size. So we know that that chick is way too big. Next we have dominance and emphasis, which is created by contrasting size, color, positioning, style, or shape. So this uses a lot of that. And then the focal point should dominate the design. Hierarchy leads the viewer through each element in order of its significance. So I keep on pointing to this one because it's a pretty strong piece. So here we have the chick, which is our main focal point. Then we move on to the person down here. And then we may also lead into the tractor over here, so we know that this is a farmer in a wheat field and notices a strange chicken. Unity and harmony. All elements are in agreement with each other, which is vastly important because without that, the work would end up being lifeless and chaotic, that may be something that you want within your game or whatever you're trying to illustrate and create, but it can also evoke feelings that you may not want your viewer to have. And similarity and contrast makes the focal point visible. Too much similarity will make the work boring, which we don't necessarily want. However, without it, the important elements will not become visible. So it's a good practice to have both that balance of similarity and contrast. All right, so when it comes to designing, the workflow depends on you and how you want to work versus how the artist also wants to work as well. Typically, you want to jot down, you want a concept, and also just gather everything together before sending it off to the artist. When it comes to character creation, this is the form that I generally use, which is also what you may want to send to your artist as well when it comes to concepting the characters. When it comes to environments, I try to follow the same thing because environments should feel alive and have a personality. You want to keep things short and to the point. You don't want to get too lost into detail, which I believe is something that we all suffer from, just because we love the project that we're working on, but the artist or the person that you're going to pass this on to may not have that same feeling. They may just want an interesting project that looks good on their resume and get a paycheck. So references are key, especially when it comes to passing on the project onto an artist. So for example, here we have characters who are flat in color but are super cute, rounded. The lines are a lot thicker or they vary a lot more, which remember back to the elements of art with the lines. And then here we have characters that are more realistic, they're a little bit more grungy. They're a little bit darker in color and tones. So it depends on the type of project and field that you want the artist to convey through your work. So using those elements of art and also principles of art terminology will help out describing what you want to convey as well. And then mood boards. So this is one that I did for a project of mine a few months ago. These are perfect if you don't know the general style of your game or storyline that you're trying to work with. So for this one, the storyline is pretty much, it's in a very happy environment. The characters are very colorful because it's based off of the art world. So very much rainbows and just bright overall colors, a lot of mixtures between them. However, there's also this darker side because the town ends up losing its color through these monsters. So here we have the contrasting of the monsters, the monsters that overtake the town. So this helps set up the overall tone and the feeling that I wanted my project to have, and also where I should take that direction of it as far as creating the characters and the environments. So I would also suggest creating these, which is generally about 20 to 30 images. However, I ended up finding about 100 of them before condensing it down to the main ones. So as far as what you would send to the artist depends on what you want them to do. So like if you just had me create a character, you would just send me a couple of reference images and also like a briefing of like the character themselves, the personality, what you want to evoke with that character. And then as far as someone who's in a studio, they would probably have a lot more involvement with the project. So you would send them like the design documents and how the game would end up playing through. Is there any questions so far? Yes.
So, the two artifacts you just listed, a mood board and sort of a spec essentially for, no, character references.
Yep.
Are you ever afraid that like, I mean, that probably is a really quick, really effective sort of thought process that you have to the artist, but are you ever afraid that that will like lead them down a road you didn't necessarily sort of like, I don't know,
Do like
So as far as
poison
like
the
copy,
creative process maybe?
if your artist is good, they shouldn't poison because they should be able to evoke a similar style or feeling that these images have. Because you don't want them to directly copy it, but you're also trying to give them visual reference, like a guidance for your words that you're conveying. I don't know if that would make sense. Because like, I should have showed the end. So these ones I used as my character reference and how I wanted my overall style to look for a project that I worked on. But it is nowhere near similar to that.
Maybe I'm trying to rephrase it. Have you ever had a situation where they went down the wrong path than you were imagining, and if so, how did you deal with it?
As far as feedback goes, it would. Because typically it would depend on how early you are into the concepting phase and coming up with ideas and figuring out the style of it. Because if you told me to change the art style, like it went through a different direction when we were working on like the final artwork, the final illustrations, then we would definitely have to go into contact, like communication as far as the contract goes. Because then that way I don't want to think that, you know, I can work for the pennies and stuff like that. But if it was like early on and that feedback happened, that's totally fine, especially when I'm like sketching in my sketchbook. So,
Basically, just help get correct early on.
yep.
Did that help yours?
No, I think I was going in a different direction of like, if I give you like, hey, it's sort of like the StarCraft character, and then I get like a StarCraft remake, and I'm like, well, I didn't want to remake StarCraft, I wanted our own thing. You
Then
know?
there's a communication issue going on here. Because if you're just giving them one image, then that just pretty much tells them that you want a copy of that one image. If you send them at least 5 to 10, not just StarCraft, but also from like other titles and games, maybe even photographs or locations and stuff like that, stuff that is also real life, and that way you can convey that you want something similar to that, but you also want your own aspects added into it.
Okay.
So like StarCraft, I'm not too familiar with it, but it's probably like heavy mech type stuff. So you may even send them images of like different tank designs, different like army based designs, just so in that way they can add in other elements into it.
I think it is also important to go on and put out there that these artifacts, like the references, the rewards, stuff like that, they don't exist in vacuums. Like, you're getting a lot of stuff together, so you're getting not only that reference art, but you're getting like a general rundown of what this project's supposed to be. And then if they're going down that direction, of course it's also very I don't know with more traditional analog if it's as agile as game development is, but generally I would assume it's been, like you said, if something's going in a direction, she'll want to catch that during that initial concept phase. So you don't, if you wind up with, so you start off with like StarCraft references, and you wind up with StarCraft, then there was something missing. Like there was a lot of, like you said, there was a lot of communication missing if that was not caught early in the process. So just remember that a lot of this stuff they're not existing separately, they are being put together. So generally this stuff will get caught very early on. Is that about right?
Sounds good to me.
All right.
With that said, projects can change, like even towards the end of the completion. So you also have to account for that. However, you really don't want that to happen. Any other?
Stay consistent for the whole day.
Yep.
And would you also say that this process would also apply to things like environment design?
Yep. So I focused on character just because that's the easiest way to describe the process. But as far as environment goes, you would definitely do the same. In fact, I would probably encourage finding more photos rather than just art pieces for that. Like have a pretty good mixture of photos and artwork to reference off of. And the same goes for animations. Well, it is still visual, but you would also find reference videos, especially if you're having issues trying to convey what you want the animation to look like, or if there's like a game or a TV series that the way that they animated their characters or their environment that you really, really liked and would like to incorporate that, then you should definitely share that with the artist. Is there any other questions? So the biggest takeaway for this that I really want people to go with is to really study the elements of art and also the principles of art, because these are going to be the key basics that you're going to want to make sure that you have a grasp on knowing when it comes to communicating with the artist. Especially since for the principle of art, this can really get into depth just because you're combining everything together. Is there any questions from the live stream?
Nope, good so far.
Okay. So, should we do a demo and create a character?
Yeah.
Sure. Sounds fun.
All right. And then if they have any questions, just let me know as well. All right. Oh, can we fix the size of this? Oops. Hopefully this will work. Okay, so I'm using Procreate on the iPad Pro. It's a pretty nifty program. Alright, so first of all, by the way, I am basing this off of Comfort and Adam's presentations. I really love how they handled their workshops. So this may be pretty familiar, especially if you go to the GR Comic Cons. Alright, so let's figure out the genre of the character that's going to be in.
Ooh, steampunk.
Steampunk? Did somebody want to add something else to that?
Medieval?
Princess.
Yep, Gord.
This is like Gothic.
Gothic.
Gothic steampunk princess.
Future funk.
Okay, now we're getting...
That's a good one.
It's a genre.
You're a genre.
Okay, so that's the genre. Alright, what is the class, job, or occupation? Should we go with princess?
Yeah, princess.
Yes.
Alright.
Deep sea diver.
Sea princess.
A deep sea diving princess. Scuba diving princess.
I second that. Wait, you're just sticking a little mermaid? Deep seas.
Underwater basket weaver.
Okay, so I'm gonna stick with just princess to keep things easy.
Underwater princess weaver.
Whoa.
All right.
Let that
So what's
simmer.
the?
I take princess and I keep them together.
Underwater dragon princess.
Oh. All right. So what's the character type? Is this a monster? Is this a little
Dragon.
cute little?
Goblin. It's a goblin.
If it's anything
Goblin.
less than a monster, I will be disappointed.
Yes, no, people
gonna
don't
say you threw monster out there.
Oh, what's his name?
Well, it could also be a person, which is what most people probably think of.
No.
If I could have thrown a person out there, we would have jumped on that.
Okay, so we've got dragon, centaur, anybody?
I'll go with centaur.
Goblin. No, I'll go with goblin. I think you came up with basket weaving.
No, I didn't go with basket weaver.
Okay.
I was in the underwater train.
A Goomba.
No, that's copyright.
A chugamoo.
The style of, that's the style of Rayman.
Stop. How dare you?
Okay. Let's see how this one goes.
So
All right,
four
so
limbs
let's-
and then wings, or 2 limbs and wings?
That's a white.
We gotta define this.
We have 30 minutes. Let's see what I can do. All right, let's do the gender. Does this have a gender, or is it male or
I
female?
guess it's 2018, but I'm assuming princess is gonna like imply.
A male.
Mama dragon.
So,
Mama dragon.
He can be a
It's
princess.
2018. A man can be a princess.
Yeah, you don't know.
Have
Oh,
you
that'd be
seen drag
trans
shows? That is amazing stuff.
When seahorses give birth, those are basically water.
Basically.
basically.
They're called leafy sea dragons for a reason.
That's why we have horsey.
And it's underwater basket weaver.
Does how are the live streaming people doing? Okay, did they want to bring up, they brought up Sea Monkey?
Oh.
Okay, let's go with that one instead to involve the live streamers.
Why isn't it working? Sea monkeys don't exist.
There we go.
Yes.
Hey guys, my mom found my jeans.
All right, let's see. Physical characteristics. And then I also like a couple from live stream as well so that they can be included.
Swole. Swole phase.
Top heavy.
Somewhat attractive.
No arms.
Swole.
Strong jawline.
Great personality.
No arms.
Okay, so this is like height and weight and also,
Just make it Jason Momoa.
Little tubby.
I don't even know who he looks like.
Aquaman.
Most handsome man in Hollywood right now.
Aquaman.
Okay, so let's start
Make it
listing
like
off.
60s Sean, like James Bond era Sean Connery.
Very posh version.
He's British. Just
What's the height of this?
Oh, like 7.
Tall.
7 foot is a bit unrealistic. 6'8".
Oh, go right ahead.
Somewhere around 5'8" to 6 feet.
It has an 8-foot vertical.
Yeah. 6'4", but 6'4" is actually like 64.
I'm running out of room.
It's only like 5.5. It's tall enough.
Probably spelled it wrong.
Well, we said Sean Connery.
4D, except that never works.
Yeah, is this an anthropomorphic?
No.
Floating hands. No
How
arms.
about weight or body type?
A what?
Dorito.
BBW.
Got some,
Top hourglass.
Hourglass?
Upside down Dorito.
Upside down.
Dorito type.
I like upside down Dorito.
Dorito.
With T-Rex arms.
Yeah.
What do we got?
Taylor, such tiny arms.
It's not created this way.
Is there any from? Oh, they're
So this
soda
would cost $50.
Emily, are you not regretting that?
Big-
we're here?
big
What was that?
Are you regretting that we're all here?
Moral support.
Man, capstone shirt.
Well,
Hey, portfolio's here too.
Okay, so what else about this character?
pear shape.
Pear shape?
Yeah.
So Dorito.
So like Dorito on top, hair on top.
Would you rather top half Dorito or bottom half
The
Dorito?
baggy medieval pants.
You know, potato shape could also be considered.
Wait.
Where's the stick?
Spike tail. Jinko jeans.
Apparently it's
Okay.
Afro.
I think we get Dorito.
It's basically
Sassy.
sassy.
All right. What are some other personalities?
Generally a piece of crap.
He's all right.
No, he's not.
I want a head of a triceratops.
Yeah.
Personality.
Personality. He has the head of the
We
triceratops.
figured this a
Triceratops personality.
For his personality.
Hangry.
100% all day, every day.
He can never be satisfied.
Okay.
Hanks will not
Wait.
sustain her.
Wait a second. What's Jake's personality?
I mean, look at those three.
Okay. So far we have a steampunk gothic, princess basket weaver, dragon sea monkey who is male, sexy average height Dorito shape, tiny arms, loves baggy pants, spiked tails, sassy, poopy, and hangry.
He seems all right.
I'll
see some on
I
Tuesdays.
hang out with him. Sometimes. If we don't have the
So as far as concepting goes, I'll try to follow through with all of these, although producing different ideas is also vitally important because you also want different perspectives and hey, that's a cool idea, we should explore more with that type situation.
It should be purple.
I'm not going into color.
That's probably a good idea.
All right. I don't know how I'm going to do this.
Oh. Stop.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh heck yeah.
Guys, we're witnessing
Oh,
art.
Don't encourage
Brandon's triggered. Brandon's triggered.
Oh my god, that's totally right.
I'm not a pro at
No, it has arms.
drawing dragons, so fair warning.
It looks
Give
like
it
a
more.
dragon.
Wait, what about
What's
the
the name of this read?
You know how to draw a horse? Do like that, but with scales.
It's
12-year-old me out like this.
one way to think
That's
of
how
it.
I should write instructional videos. Do like that, but with
Even if I did, I
scales.
wouldn't know how to.
You know what a clock looks like? Yeah, draw one of those and give it scales.
It looks like a pizza, you know.
You know what a chair looks like?
But with
It's not
scales.
that.
It's like how to draw a tick. Draw an oval. Then draw the tick holding the oval. Yeah.
The face and
My
this.
favorite how to draw things ever are the ones that do step 1, draw it.
You got this.
Step
Step
1, draw a
one, draw
circle.
the
Step
circle.
2, draw the rest of the darn horse.
Ruben, did you put something in there?
Oh yeah, sure. Let's do that for the job.
I don't know, I was joining.
Oh yeah, don't
Forget it,
get
I gotta
selfies.
do that.
Move you right here.
I'm in like
So first, let me take a selfie.
Oh my god.
Shush.
Let's see, steampunk gothic.
Set up my one finger and the index finger up. So, show
It's a dog! So I had
So
a
you just
sneaker
fall.
I looked into yours as well.
Oh, you know what? I just realized that I also get Juno from the master.
We created their name here.
What?
So just take that picture, followed by that picture.
That's how they make signs.
Yes.
Okay.
You're just alone.
Except with this one has more.
There's a dog.
Yeah, you can see the tears in my eyes pulled back.
Do we have to like send it to or anywhere?
No, it's
No, it's in your.
Oh, I got one.
I just made like another documentation. It's just gonna have.
Okay.
Like
Who's got pictures of people from the?
Oh, yeah.
Thing.
Yeah, look at those baggy pants. They're like my eyes. Baggy.
Okay.
It dries up all over it. Adjust for me.
It just desaturated the whole image. It's like, I can't handle the diversity.
This is giving you character increases.
It's drop door.
No. Drug door is made with an S and then a more different.
Oh dear.
Accidentally.
I like looking for an internship.
One.
Okay. So.
Oh, Chester, yes. Scale here.
So does anybody have any other feedback or questions?
Probably some like scratches along the snout. Like if they've been in a battle or two.
How does a
What? Chris has to fight?
What would you do?
Oh, are you saying kisses can't fight? Have you ever played Fire? Have you ever played Fire Emblem?
I like that
I want to
question.
find the fact that it's humanoid.
What question was that?
What would you do to
There you
make
go.
it
Really? That's the part that
To make it more female?
So far, yeah.
Feminine. Make it feminine.
I mean, I am adding a corset to this. It'd probably help if there was like also a skirt, and then I know
Add
for the
some zips.
shoes,
Add a cummerbund.
probably making it more like pump-like almost, as far as like how the heel
And
goes.
some pierced earrings.
At that
Want some
Not
earrings?
pierced ears.
that
Earrings
veil
must be
thing that goes
pierced.
Dragons
behind
don't
the
have ears.
princess's head with the crown.
Dragons
You
don't
have,
have
like,
ears.
They're usually like pink.
So Red's not a
So
dragon.
Red's not a
I
dragon.
know, he's not a dragon.
He's a wizard.
What is red?
You give it long hair.
It's not important.
He's a name gator.
He's a wingless wyvern. He's not a
Make it
wingless
long
dragon.
curly.
There you go.
I think it's a name gator.
Yeah, look at that. Look at those eyes.
Yeah. Heck yeah.
All those locks.
I could fall asleep in that.
Would it be comfortable? Heck no.
I don't care. I love it.
Quench your thirst.
Oh yeah.
He's a self-made dragon who don't need no man.
He's a self-made dragon. He don't need no man.
Oh, I love it.
Oh.
Turn around.
Turn around. Every now and then.
Not enough highlights. Not enough.
Turn around.
Still needs
God, eyes. I think we can start a band. Singing songs that have already existed. It's called cover band. What's a cover band? Is that where we, yeah, I know what a cover band is.
I was concerned
I'm
with
just
the
Kiss Station.
It's a band where you're like always
A
in
good
bed.
one.
Oh, I can get down with that kind of thing. We should join.
It
But
totally
I think that's what we already did that. They called it under the cover.
That big tail.
Imagine it's a bigger tail to go to the
Actually,
When I was getting critiqued on him, the state melees was like, yeah, make his tail bigger because he's not doing anything. I'm like, oh, okay. It's not good.
He also says add arms.
Yeah. But, you know, we're not going to listen to Steve Melee's because he doesn't know how to design characters.
Hi, Tom.
But Red does.
Brad knows how to design characters.
Yeah. You can design those characters. When in doubt, design it out.
looks like the kind of dragon that would talk like.
What?
I can't help this. It's very interesting. Is that what's...
Oh,
Now.
From Lemon and Bullet.
Yeah.
It's like a older.
All right, so there's one design. However, typically the first design sucks. So we're gonna explore this some more.
He's not sexy enough.
So I clearly did not follow the sea monkey or even the basket weaver, but I did try to incorporate the steampunk and gothic feel to it.
You got mailed down pretty good.
And put a tub of water and have it just kind of sitting there.
Have the monkey in the
It's implied.
I mean, I guess.
Yeah, it works. It works.
What do sea monkeys look like? Smacks, right?
Like water.
That is a good question.
But west.
So we'll see how this
I think
goes.
they got the crowns on
Yeah,
top.
we're
No,
supposed
we-
to- oh,
You
yeah.
got a crown right on
Draw
there.
that
That counts.
Yeah, the crown is part of the head.
Toy Story.
Oh
I don't know. I think we made a great new child role model.
Let's make a.
This is definitely the next. This is definitely the next cereal box character.
Oh yeah.
All the genders.
Crunch here. Crunch. Oh no, I thought I had something there. But...
Crunch
Trying
rock.
to do something, put him in a tube or something.
Oh, this one's
yeah,
like a sea
it'd be
monkey.
Tootler. If you just put him in a fish tank.
With a penguin nose.
Oh yeah. He could be in a fish tank.
You're super
Or beef. Not nose. Just a nose, a little full.
Who knows?
Penguin nose.
No birds have noses.
They got snoots.
I guess they do now.
They have holes. They have holes. Kind of.
All right, so I'm gonna try with the sea monkey, or yeah.
That's a monkey nose.
This monk's is
Sorry, I'm a little out. I'm not on my game.
That's not.
King goes crap.
She has all the excuses.
I have all the time. I was born.
No, you didn't.
No, you were
Apparently, I know multiple people with the same name, and I have texted the wrong person.
Monkey mermaid.
It's a sea monkey. Not a monkey mermaid. Monkey man.
Oh yeah, that's
It's a mermaid.
That's a mermaid.
I can see that.
yeah, look at that tail.
Yeah.
Your son Starles is.
And you can add scale, and it's basically a
How many
dragon.
kills a person?
Underwater dragon. Underwater basket weaving dragon.
Now, would
So
you
many
rather
layers to this
compare your
character.
Top half basket weaver or bottom half basket weaver?
That's a real question.
If you were to wear pants, how would you? I feel like. So we're gonna lose all the comedy.
Well, they were like this.
So is there anything about this so far that could be improved on?
Nose piercing.
It's perfect.
Oh, no, wait. It's great. I'm not saying steampunk.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, there's
That's why I said nose piercing.
Now you gotta put some
That's-
goggles on its forehead.
No, just throw
Ah,
like
yes.
a gear on his back or something.
Goggles on.
Make it out of gears.
Or
Yeah.
both.
Just one giant gear on
Actually,
its
make the
back.
earrings gears.
That's its actual spine.
A giant key, like a turning key.
Oh, okay. I'm like a giant key.
I mean,
Looks like
That's also a blade.
Key?
A blade key.
No.
and then it can be hard kingdoms.
And it's a third installment.
3 Heart Kingdoms. There you go.
Sweethearts.
Moonrise
I
Freedom.
watched a reaction video. James Woods
Eros.
down here.
Yeah.
Yeah, he tweeted last.
And his best friend Roku.
I have a gear
He
reversal.
tweeted that he had not been tweeting for a while because
Oh,
he was
the tail could be
busy
mechanical.
doing a poker tournament and doing lines in Kingdom of Hearts. And everybody was like, James Woods has got to be trolling us. There's no way he doesn't know it's Kingdom Hearts. And I'm like, James Woods is like 60. He's a good chance I think it's Kingdom of Hearts.
There's a
Not you.
Gear reversal.
Thanks, Ruben.
big
Puppies.
He's in the woods. Okay. What's up? Okay. Finger guns.
Is there anybody in the back that would like to add to this?
But it's not.
No pressure. Ear earrings.
Gear rings.
Ear gears.
This is why we don't beat him anymore.
Wow.
Alright, your turn's
I
done.
defended myself.
All right.
Aw, I miss you, Paul.
Great, now when I make a steampunk rat skin, it's gonna have earrings.
That's it. That's the only change.
So just a earring. Yeah, this is the steampunk skin.
For all we know, it could be
That was a
storm.
spicy
Oh yeah, because there's a monkey dragon, he can breathe fire.
Wait, how do you breathe fire underwater?
SpongeBob.
Are these SpongeBob rules or are these real life rules?
Yeah.
See, that's the type of stuff you gotta tell me.
Okay, so let's
Because
just go with
typically-
SpongeBob rules.
Because as far as building up,
It's SpongeBob rules, but as soon as they recognize that there's fire in the water, it disappears. That's a thing.
because as far as developing a world goes, you also want to figure out the rules of the world as well. Otherwise, it's going to be like an all or nothing type thing. Like anything goes, and you don't really want that to happen. So like if it's supposed to be like a real life situation type stuff, but hey, there's this one magical element in it, then you have to create rules for that. Otherwise, there's going to be even more magical elements, and it's just going to come off as fake, and while you're trying to come off as realistic.
And he breathes superheated.
What if he's not in water, but he's in pool?
Oh.
Oh.
No, it's here. He's a robot, bro. From Princess Leia.
Metal's not impervious to fire.
It's actually like hurt by it. Almost like every lore possible.
Or
No, let her keep going. I think she's onto something.
No, I got it.
you see?
Because it's a steampunk universe, she travels in a
Lava.
hovering bucket. He travels in a hovering bucket of water.
No, hovering basket.
Oh.
That he has to weave.
Wouldn't y'all leave out of that?
And he's
Exactly,
the
it's my
ultimate
favorite.
weaver.
Keep it still.
Oh man.
I like it.
It
I
looks
think
like a carrot.
This is why you don't create characters.
I was thinking of
Is
like
the ultimate is Wally Weaver. Is this a retailer side
maybe that's why he was that.
Whoa.
Hey, it's that fake Weaver.
I mean, that'd be upset.
Fake.
Yeah.
I think you're the
This
best.
is the supply of my PhD.
Oh no.
They had to deliver it in a cycle.
Digging it.
That's real.
Comparing yourself to me. You're not even going to be my Weaver.
Do you realize everything he's saying is on like?
Oh, you could have just gotta show it.
Yeah.
Yeah, come over there.
Yeah, I was talking to him on the chat just a few minutes
Wait,
ago.
what's the
only thing they say is,
I am Weaver.
Oh,
Where's
they
the live
just
stream
deliver it.
It's on the Discord.
What a world.
Look,
He's on the Discord.
What site is it on?
Twitch.
Oh.
It's GamedevGR.
Thank you.
What's interesting?
Probably balance on.
When alma mater.
I knew it. It wasn't pizza basket.
Oh wow, yeah.
No, but seriously, she went to my alma mater.
He seems surprised the pizza is in the basket.
because it's not oil.
Where?
Oh.
Where are his baggy pants? Or does he just generally have a love for baggy pants?
Yeah, they just
Can't wear.
He doesn't. You don't always
No, it's a
need
baggy
to wear
pant.
baggy pants if you love
It's like when he sees someone walking down the street with baggy pants, he's just like, oh,
I
love
understand now.
those.
She's surrounded by denim.
It's
Yes.
perfect.
Hello,
Never
Mr.
took
Banjo
bad
Kazooie. I've got a great idea for you.
Yeah. Call him up just like that, Bob.
Monkey
Mr.
Dragon.
Banjo.
I mean,
Oh,
it's more like
yeah.
alligator.
That's where St. Joseph Township is.
Alright, so here we have another design of a monkey, sea monkey living in oil with pizza rather than even more oil to feed off of,
Even for me.
with a basket that he weaved himself.
Yeah. Underwater.
That's
On oil?
Wow.
Yeah, we can talk after.
Alright.
Nice.
So should I do one more design or how many designs?
One more.
Yeah. Let's think.
Make it, okay, is it gonna be top half dragon, bottom half monkey? Or top half monkey, bottom half dragon?
Now this is where you guys as a team have to come to a conclusion.
Executive decision. Top half monkey, bottom half dragon.
No,
No.
Dragon
Middle
Dragon.
half. Yeah. Side dragon is
I think it's
It was
Always
sliced.
come
I
up
do
with
have
a
some.
whole new
They're a
design
little
They don't have
of
shadow.
Why don't top half dragon,
Oh,
bottom half sea monkey?
I don't know your name.
What if he's a dragon?
Why don't they have
wearing
this
a
side?
Middle shot.
Do you ever experience spec creep like
Emily,
this?
stop it.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
So I try to keep things nice and simple and
Yeah.
to the point.
Emily,
Yeah.
I'll make it easy. Why don't we have Lily decide?
What do you think we should go with? Should we go with
top
top?
half dragon, bottom half monkey, except we should add some different characteristics too.
Okay.
Yeah. I like
Project got
that.
changed up halfway through and they need a new character.
I still vote for Future Funk.
Future.
Just don't let it die.
Okay.
Minutes ago.
At least this way we know that it's not crazy.
Yes! You see, you say that.
How about
Also
we
known as
reverse our Triceratops head?
So it's not a T-Rex, it's a Triceratops.
See, that's where I'm gonna need a reference image.
Otherwise, I don't
There's
know.
at least a couple
One with the big head and the horns going out.
Okay, we're a bad client. We
It's
don't
like,
give you reference
it's like
images.
this.
I just want you to know what I want.
Yeah, with a horn on its nose.
And if you're not good enough
Do
to
you
know
remember-
immediately, then I'm fine.
like a
with you.
rhino.
Do you remember Land
Oh
Before
yeah,
Time?
Yeah, it was the
Yeah. It was the sassy one.
Sarah?
Yep. Yeah.
Hey, I want you to make a logo for me. Okay.
Right here's Triceratops.
Yeah.
Make it look good.
You should have just pulled up Land Before Time.
Yeah, do that.
We should get it. We should give it feathers.
You know-
like
you know
scientists
Sarah
are thinking they have.
From Land Before Time.
We've already been down that road.
Oh.
It could
You know
be
Sarah.
the dragon wings could be feathered wings.
Yeah?
Should this
With
still
a
be male,
Triceratops
or
head
should we change
and a
this?
monkey bottom.
Change the
Could be
gender?
buffalo.
Let's make it a female.
Yeah.
Female.
Buffaloes don't have wings.
Boneless.
They have wild wings.
Alrighty. So which of the physical characteristics should we keep, and which one should we discard?
I vote we nix the Dorito shake.
They have everything done over there.
I say we get rid of the tiny arms.
Instead of a Dorito shape, make it a pizza shape.
the same thing.
Alright.
No, that's a pizza
Feel
slice.
an hourglass.
Two Doritos.
Sexy hourglass.
There are no bones.
It's a little cliche.
Good.
Hey.
Keep it
Hey.
boneless.
Extra boneless.
Some girls like sexy hourglasses.
Hourly glasses.
Hourly glasses.
Let's start a glasses company and call it Owl.
All right. Anything else?
Yeah.
You and me.
We need to emphasize the poopy personality.
Yeah, how do you do
Play
that?
it. Is your company level hourglass?
Make their face look
Stop. Glasses too.
Poopy.
Hourglass glasses.
Let's see.
Puppy. You're in our company. Natalie's gonna be in our company.